Well, here we are with Kevin Lord. Nice to see you again,
Good
Kevin.
to see you again, too.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here at ISHI.
Yeah, ISHI
for
33.
Another year. Yes,
Yeah.
ISHI 33. I was blanking on the number, so I just...
It's up there. Powered
okay.
for 33 years.
Got it.
Yeah. So you're here with the Jane Doe Project?
DNA Doe Project.
Jane Doe. Why did I say that? DNA
We
Doe.
deal with Jane Does,
Yep.
but also John
Yes.
Does. Yes.
Jane and yes. So tell me about some of your new concepts and things that you have going on over there.
Yeah, so I mean, we're always working on new cases.
Yep.
We're up to approximately almost 100 identifications now. Since
Are you
we started
kidding me?
in 2017.
Wow, what's your best year? What's the highest number?
I don't know offhand.
But
I
that's
wish. I mean,
100 total is huge. But,
yeah, probably like 20 or 30 in a single year.
Okay.
I'd imagine.
And as you're growing your number of people who are helping with this, does that number go up then? The more people who are doing it?
It does to some degree. We've held pretty stable at the number of, so all of our genealogists are on a volunteer basis.
Right.
And we have something in the neighborhood of around 50 or 60 volunteer genealogists.
Wow.
A huge number. We're pretty well staffed on the genealogist side to be able to take on more cases. Of course, if we start getting an abundance of new cases, we have a whole backlog of volunteers, people that would love to volunteer, and so we're very fortunate in that capacity.
Can you remind me again, how do these cases come in? How does it get assigned to you or to these people helping out?
Yeah, so they pretty much all come from law enforcement agencies.
Okay.
So it can be a variety of sources, anywhere from local police departments, sheriff's offices, state police in some cases, and then also a lot of medical examiners, coroners' offices. And usually we're kind of the option of last resort.
Okay.
And so usually they'll have already done traditional STR DNA testing, tried to put it in CODIS, not gotten any hits, put the information in NamUs, not seen any matches in NamUs, and then still don't know what to do. And so they come to us. There are some cases even where we've solved them where the DNA was in such bad shape that they just weren't able to get STR profiles.
Okay.
But then we were still able, with the whole genome sequencing, we're able to get usable data for genealogy. And so kind of a mix, but usually people will have already done all the traditional DNA testing.
Okay. So then the methods that are being utilized by the people that work with you, they are not traditional. They are going many different routes to figure out what has happened to these people. Can you describe what are some of the methods that people use?
Yeah, so instead of STR testing, all of the stuff we do is SNP based, and it's hundreds of thousands of SNPs, and eventually, so we work from all types of samples, bones, teeth, blood, hair, and then do whole genome sequencing, goes through Bioinformatics, which I do for the most part, DNA Doe Project, and then we eventually upload to genealogy databases. So that right now that's GEDmatch and Family Tree DNA that allow law enforcement. And then we get a list of DNA matches back. That can be anywhere from very close relatives like a sibling, all the way out to 5th, 6th cousins potentially and beyond.
Wow.
And so then all the volunteers will start building out family trees for the DNA matches. We kind of see where they intersect, and then that kind of helps us narrow down the field. So we find these common ancestors. If we can connect a bunch of those together, we can keep narrowing it down. And then we get to present day, and then we have to start doing some more investigative type work, where we're looking at social media, we're looking at public records. Facebook is one of our biggest sources of information.
I suppose.
People post, there's great Uncle Jim. And so we can see, that's the relationship that we were missing.
I have literally said that on my Facebook, I'm sure. There's my great Uncle Jim. Yeah, that's for sure. So, that's a lot of DNA, or it's not a lot of DNA. That's a lot of information that is out there that can be utilized. That's very interesting. And so, also, you were talking about the recent blood card project.
Yes.
What? Can you tell me that? Tell me about that.
So, one of the biggest barriers to all this work is, I'm sure you can imagine is the cost of it all.
Yes.
The DNA testing, not always cheap, especially when you're doing whole genome sequencing and
Correct.
you're having to extract DNA from very old samples, bones, teeth, rootless hair, all of that kind of stuff. That DNA testing can be really expensive. And so what we came to realize, we've worked on all different types of cases, all different sources of DNA, and we work with a lot of different lab partners, and we're able to determine that blood cards, which is something that when a decedent is more has a low post-mortem interval and is found fairly recently, usually even if it's sometimes a couple of weeks, they might still take a DNA card, blood card at the medical examiner's office or coroner. And so that's often ends up being a pretty good source of DNA.
Yeah.
And so we were able to realize that these types of cases, we didn't need quite as much sequencing because there wasn't a lot of bacteria. It was generally like a pretty fresh sample, mostly human DNA, not super degraded all the time. And so we're able to, with one of our lab partners, do kind of a lower amount of sequencing and then fill some of that missing data in on the bioinformatics side, and able to do these types of cases much less expensively than a bone case or a hair case. And so one of the things that we try to do at DNA Doe Project also is, if agencies don't have the funding for cases, we try to help raise the funds or kick in some of our money from our general fund so that we can make sure that cases don't go unsolved just due to lack of finances. And so I started this project, the DNA Doe Project, to take some of that money that we had available and specifically focus it on these blood card cases to try to do the most good with the limited amount of resources that we have available. And doing that, we're able to process more samples and hopefully get more cases solved.
Sure. So how in the world did you think to go to the blood cards? Like, that's not something, it's probably not common knowledge that, there are these blood cards that are, kept or gathered.
So it kind of, it's kind of just based on experience. So anytime a new case comes on, we work with the agency, ask them, what do y'all have for remains? Do you have blood? Do you have, we didn't necessarily know to ask for blood in the beginning, but then we'd get an agency, mostly medical examiners, that would come to us and say, okay, well, we have a blood card on this one. Generally, that hasn't been common practice for a long time.
That was going to be my next question, because it seems like that's maybe a new thing.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably become more common from what I've seen in maybe the last 15, 20 years or so. And it's usually in more recent cases that those are available. And it does vary from agency to agency whether they take those and how long they've been doing it. But it kind of came from the agencies when they started telling us, oh, well, we have a blood card. And we said, oh, well, much rather, let's try that instead of these bones that were buried in the ground for who knows how long.
I feel like that would be a really fantastic thing to kind of standardize, right? Like if you have a victim and you can get any sort of blood, right, and to put that on a card, that would be fantastic.
That would
Start
be
that
great.
database, right?
I would love to have, if every medical examiner and coroner took blood samples, if possible, at the time of death, or took some kind of DNA sample. That would make our lives much easier, because a lot of times agencies, they hadn't done that, and they'll have to go back, and sometimes they bury the remains, and they'll have to go and exhume them just to get the samples that we need. Or they do have the remains, but it's only, they had already done the autopsy, defleshed all the bones, and then there's only bones left, or there's only teeth left. So if those were done in every case and just set aside, takes up just a tiny amount of storage. It's just a little sheet of filter paper, essentially.
And then you take punches of that, right? And then you can...
and it's such a good source of DNA. You only usually have to use such a small amount of it. There's still plenty left over.
So you could do multiple from one spot.
If our testing doesn't work out the first time, go back in a few years, do it again. Just like a, not endless, but a huge source of DNA for all kinds of testing later on.
Well, let's call everybody. Let's, get on the phone all those coroners.
Yes.
There's got to be like one number that probably goes to all coroners.
Maybe
right?
the National Medical Examiners Association or the,
That would be very beneficial. I could see a huge help in that. And so you also talked about you need to go out and get some funding. Who are you going to ask for, funds for these kind of things to help out with this?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have anyone coming to my house and going, "Hey, I've got this really good idea.
If you have like a really rich
donate?
uncle, I'd be happy to talk to them.
Probably. Okay.
But I mean, for the most part, for our the history of our organization, it's mostly been small donations from the public.
Oh, okay. So it is.
It is a lot of our followers on social media, people that have followed our work and just really want to see these cases solved. They'll donate. Sometimes it's $5, $10, $20. They'll donate it, and we'll put it to good use. We have been trying to expand that a little bit and start to go after some grants and maybe larger donors, corporate donors. We have had some medium-sized donations from corporations and places like the Crime Junkie podcast network, who have lots of fans that donated to them, and then they passed it on to us.
Oh, that's very cool.
So we're kind of trying to move into trying to get some of those more sustainable sources of funding, but traditionally just our fans and supporters have really helped us carry this work out.
Yeah, that's neat. Good luck with that. That's a very important job too.
It is. We would love to be an organization for the next 10, 15, 20.
I think it's important, right? I think there's so many people out there that maybe don't want to have that as their, all day, everyday job, but they definitely want to be the sleuth and be out there trying to, make matches and help out in that way. So
for sure.
Yeah. Yep. Do you guys have a social media following? Do you have, are people posting to Reddit or any sort of things like that? Instagram? Do you have an Instagram page? Those kind of things?
I know you interviewed my colleague Karen.
I did. A little bit.
She runs our social media.
Okay.
A lot of it. She's not the only person, but she handles a lot of our social media. She does a really good job at it. We have our Facebook account, which is probably our biggest following.
Okay.
We have Twitter, we have TikTok, we have Instagram.
TikTok.
We're all over the place.
Okay.
So LinkedIn. You can find us on pretty much any of the social networks that you'd want to look for, and try to post content that the followers will like and find engaging, and get them up to date about our cases and how they can help too.
Yep. So, in conclusion, can you think of a recent case that you guys helped solve? Can you think of any that you can share with me?
Yes. So there was a case that was near and dear to my heart because in addition to doing kind of the lab and bioinformatics stuff on the back end, I also was a team lead on the case and helped lead the genealogy aspect. And so that was a Texas case, and we had I live in Texas, I live in Austin. Okay. So we had a previous case with this same agency, the Lavender Doe case, which was solved a few years ago. They were so happy with the work that we did on that case, brought us another one. The Lavender Doe case we solved fairly quickly in about a month and a half.
Ooh,
this one took longer. This one was 15 months of genealogy research, plus all the lab and bioinformatics and everything beforehand. But it was very difficult because the area that she was from, there was a lot of pedigree collapse in the population. So intermarriage over a couple hundred years, smaller towns kind of in the mountains.
That would make it more difficult.
It was in the border kind of along North Carolina, Virginia was where she ended up being from. So she was known as Gregg County Jane Doe. Now she's known as Pamela Young. And so we were able to give her identity back, and she had children also that had never known what happened to her. And so we were really happy that we were able to.
Oh my gosh, how does that make you feel to know that you helped name a person who was completely lost to everybody?
Yeah, it's always such a great feeling. And I mean, in this case, I had personal conversations with the daughter, and so that she helped us kind of test and confirm things, and so that was really a big help. And I was able to really kind of see the impact firsthand that this work had. The detective, when he was calling, one of the other family members had me on the call as well, and so I got to hear that.
Oh my gosh.
And it was just really impactful. That's not something we always get to hear in a lot of the cases.
No.
And we kind of hand it over to the law enforcement agency, and we know that it's resolved and solved, but we don't always hear that stuff. So that I get to hear from a family member, that's really impactful.